Hunter Biden has been found guilty on all counts in his federal gun trial. The charges stem from accusations he illegally purchased and possessed a gun while he was addicted to crack cocaine. Throughout the trial, the defense argued the client was not using at the time. The case marks the first time a child of a sitting U.S. president has ever been convicted of a crime, and Hunter Biden could face prison time. Our legal analyst, Wendy Patrick, joins us now to break down today's verdict. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
Other than the historic aspect of this being the first time the child of a president has been convicted of a crime, was there anything really unusual about this case to you?
I think what was unusual about this case and what really distinguishes it from Donald Trump's case is the human value of the issue of addiction. Remember that unlike Donald Trump being tried in Manhattan, this case was tried in Delaware. I mean, this is Biden jurisdiction. And the jurors were so familiar, it seemed. I mean, juror number 10 talked about the first lady, called her Jill. So you wonder, how familiar they were, even with the family. But they also were familiar with the issue of addiction. And although the case was about lying on a form and illegally possessing a gun, it permeated everything surrounding the testimony that came out to prove whether or not Hunter considered himself an addict or an unlawful user at the time he signed that form. But some people thought that it was going to be a not guilty verdict. You heard the term jury nullification used a lot, specifically because of that human element that really distinguished this trial from the other.
I guess as Americans, we can be maybe relieved that people who are serving on a jury, they are familiar, they may even have some empathy, sympathy, but they looked at the law, they looked at the case, and they came to this verdict.
Instead of looking at the audience.
Right.
That was huge because you had the first lady in the front row every day. You had all of that media. You had all of the Bidens assembled. But those are optics, not evidence. And when the jurors that have agreed to be interviewed, and we know that at least one has, it really seems like they did exactly that, is they didn't allow the faces in the gallery to dictate their verdict, to influence their verdict, to intimidate them out of talking to the press afterwards. I mean, we got a really good flavor of what went on in that deliberation room. We heard that the first straw poll was split 6-6. So we know it wasn't a slam dunk for them, despite the speed with which they came up with that verdict. So it really seems like they took their job seriously, even though they were in a very friendly jurisdiction to the first family.
How we got here was kind of interesting. There was a plea deal in place.
Right.
Can you walk us back through what you saw happen there and how we ended up going to trial?
Oh, you bet I can. It was a year ago. It seems like yesterday that we had that plea deal that famously unraveled in front of the judge, who really poked a lot of holes in exposing this really wasn't a meeting of the minds in terms of what both sides thought they were agreeing to. It wrapped in the tax charges that Hunter will now go to trial on in September if there's not a plea deal in mind.
That's here in California. Here
in California, shortly before the election. But once that had unraveled, the decision was made not to plead guilty, but to go forward. Now, we wish we knew more about the backstory, but we don't get to know because that's, between he and his lawyer.
We're running out of time here. What's next for Hunter Biden? Is he going to appeal? Is there grounds for appeal, or is he going to prison?
I wish I had more time for that, because remember that, no, he's probably not going to prison if similarly situated defendants wouldn't. But the appellate grounds may be more along the lines of Second Amendment protections, which makes it far more complicated than simply did this jury get it wrong. So I would expect us to see that appeal after sentencing, which hasn't been set yet.
And talk about strange bedfellows. We're hearing about the NRA possibly supporting that part of the case.
Yes,
Wendy
very
Patrick,
strange.
our legal analyst and political analyst, thank you so much for your time. You always bring great insight. We appreciate you showing up today.
Thank you for having me.